All right, go ahead, drop your trousers and start grinning, because this one's called Candy Cane Level Midnight. It was the midnight hour at the candy cane factory, and no one was awake except for the candy cane security guard. He wore an official outfit with a red and white striped tricorn cap, a metal chest piece stamped with a Christmas seal, and he carried a poison-tipped lancet. His name was Gordon Ramsay, and he was a big fan of sports, dribbling, kicking, dogs, knives, you know, sports. He was listening to a sport on his iPhone when all of a sudden, scram, 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 scram. Yeah, the burglary alarm went off. Who would burgle at the midnight hour? Gordon Ramsay said with vitriol. Turns out, it was a crime man. Yeah, he had a ski mask on and crime gloves, and he was from Crimea. And in a big sack, oh no! He had all the candy canes the factory made for the Christmas children, the little Christmas children. Not in my house! Screamed Gordon Ramsay. He started swinging his lancet in a complicated manner, really showing off, grunting the whole fucking time. And Mr. Crime, he was like, wow, what mastery. But he got too close and scrim! Gordon Ramsay's poison lancet plunged straight through his eye to fuck his precious brain. Scoraboo! The man referenced, and he staggered backwards, poison melting his fucking head apart like a Cadbury egg in a skillet, and he fell right into the big metal vat. You know, the big metal vat? The one full of candy cane batter? That's right! Well, Gordon Ramsay was happy the candy canes were safe, but he was ashamed of himself because he was a pacifist. The guard of the candy cane factory was a ceremonial job, like the Queen of England or the Minister of Fucking, and he never meant to use his sick-ass killing skills, just study them honorably, like the main character, I can't remember his name, but the guy in the movie Ip Man. So he kept it hush-hush and let the body rot in the cane juice or batter, whatever. So then Christmas came around, and everyone was on the radio saying, "Did you get your candy canes yet?" People stampeded into the Walgreens on Astoria Boulevard and plowed down old ladies, crushed little tots, total bloodbath. Also, they could get the newest candy canes and all the newest flavors, cardamom, patchouli, and milk. And all the tots sat in front of the TV, wearing their Christmas masks and December shirts, just throating those candy canes. But all the while, they didn't even know. No one knew what they were really sucking until 'twas the night before Christmas, and all through the house, not a creature was stirring except for every single child. Yeah, the kids couldn't sleep, but it wasn't because they were dreaming about sugar plums or Santa pussy. Then, like it was magic, each child jolted out of bed at the midnight hour, 1 a.m., and left their houses in their jammies with pistols in their pockets and crowbars in their fists. Yeah, something compelled them all, but it wasn't Christmas vigor. It was crime! Little Bashir Braminsky stole a car and crashed into a Home Depot. Lilith Scarbo and a team of children in D.C. vandalized the Jefferson Monument with a diaper and 2 cucumbers. Naked chanting children gangs burned down a barn in Illinois, and in Ohio they burned down Toledo. Everyone was scared, trying to stop their children from criming. What had gotten into them? That's when Gordon Ramsay went friggin' nuts. His own children, all 6 of them named Security Guard Jr. They kidnapped a government official and forged government documents, fucking up state borders and outlawing libraries. Oh no! Gordon Ramsay alone knew why this happened, so he booked a live appearance on the big TV news. "Hello, everyone," he said. "It's the security guard from earlier in the story, and I killed a guy, a crime guy, and his blood spilled into all the candy canes, and because I used poison, the crime gene escaped his blood, and now it's in all of our kids because only a child can truly love a Christmas cane. My bad. I hope this makes up for it." That's when he took out his lancet, propped it straight up on the ground, and jumped high into the air. He landed ass first on top of the blade. He skewered his bottom and slid down until his alimentary canal was a straight tube from mouth to ass. Oh, gross! The speech made everyone realize their children were no longer children, but criminals. So they paid the police $1 million smackers and bought them a bunch of party drugs to stay up all Christmas night and arrest every goddamn child. And the police did, and the people were happy. And that's why there's no more children except in jail. Jail, where the child at heart is a child forever.
This one's called Tim Allen in the Santa Claus. God was having a big-time PR problem after a couple colossal fuck-ups that everyone in the neighborhoods on Earth were talking about. Approval was at its lowest when he got a DUI in Heaven's version of California. He was completely blackout shit-canned and said a ton of super bad stuff about cops, which, even if you agree with, you shouldn't say out loud. Especially if you're God. So God decided to have a sweepstakes, because people on Earth love sweepstakes. Let's have a sweepstakes, God said to his assistant, Danny Glover. We get everyone on Earth to write me a question and we'll pick one at random. Then we'll fly out the winner economy class, and then they get to ask me the question in person. And no peeking, the question will be a surprise. But the question has to be asked in English. Not because I favor English speakers, but because it's the most recent language I've learned and I want to practice it. Danny Glover agreed this was a good idea. The letters poured in. Danny Glover put all the mail in a pile, closed his eyes, and pulled an envelope out. It was written by Rick Tick Tick Rick of Georgia on Earth. Immediately, Danny Glover booked Rick Tick's flight and made arrangements to get him to God's TV studio ASAP. Rick Tick packed his shit, and he was in heaven that very evening, sitting in front of a live studio audience. The camera rolled, and God entered the studio to tepid applause. He frowned, his ego bruised. God sat down and gave Rick Tick a limp handshake. His hand was freezing cold and a little wet, and Rick Tick winced. God lowered his head, ashamed. Rick Tick looked at God. He looked at the audience. Then he looked at God again. Ask the fucking question, Danny Glover screamed from the wings. What's the most annoying thing you've done, sir? Rick Tick stammered.
Oh, Jesus Christ, fuck me,
he moaned. Look, man, you don't have to answer, Rick Tick said.
Fuck,
God muttered.
No, okay. Ugh. The most annoying thing I've done is invent Tim Allen.
Viewers on Earth gasped. The audience in God's studio freaked the fuck out, screaming shit at God and puking towards him.
I know, I deserve this, but you should know the whole story,
God pleaded. You're a fucking monster, Rick Tick muttered. God accepted this.
For a couple centuries, I kept having a dream about this guy named Tim Allen. He was just a little short of funny, like perfect for TV, but probably would never cross over to movies fully. At best, he'd have a very brief career. Maybe it would pick back up towards the end, before fizzing out again. Like Michael Keaton, who my brother invented. My brother's name isn't God,
God clarified. Everyone nodded.
For some reason, I thought that him not being funny was funny in and of itself, especially that ruh, ruh, ruh bark thing he does. For a few million years, I debated inventing him and making him live on Earth forever. I finally decided it'd be a good wisecrack, so I went ahead.
A man in the audience vomited. God continued.
After a couple million years on Earth, Tim Allen was in hell. Not being able to die is torturous, which is kind of funny if you think about it. He vowed to blow the lid on me. So in the 1800s, he invented Santa Claus. Once a year, he'd leave treats for boys and girls after breaking into their houses. Somehow this gained traction. Turned out to be a 150-year long con for Tim Allen to make a movie that came out in the 20th century called The Santa Claus, if you've ever heard of it. Like all movies on Earth, I got to see the first cut. It was just Tim Allen in a suit behind a desk. He apologized that he invented Santa, but he explained he only did so he could tell the truth about me, God, your fresh amigo, your main man. And Tim Allen sang like a canary, talked about some of the shittier business deals I had, how I was in bed with the Cubans in the 60s, that jogger I hit with my car. The public couldn't see it. So I hired a Tim Allen lookalike, rewrote the script in a night with the help of a mound of cocaine, and we completely reshot it in a week. No one told Tim Allen, so imagine how shocked he was at the screening and saw the truth. He was so mad, he ran into a bank and blew his head off. I didn't have time to check the coroner's report. I assume he actually died, but maybe all his brain chunks that splattered against the tellers turned into mini Tim Allens. Who knows, it could happen.
God laughed. The studio audience was silent. There was a clap, another clap, and another clap. Soon the audience was roaring. God smiled, and then they began barking. Rah, 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 rah. God's blood went cold. Rah, rah. God screamed. The audience was filled with Tim Allens. They salivated. Their eyes went yellow with rage. Their fingernails grew really quickly, and the Tim Allens were ready to fucking kill God to even the score. God regained his composure and couldn't help but smile.
You got me, you motherfucker, you got me.
The Tim Allens descended on God and ate him balls first. They popped like grapes, and it took them a long time to die. So next time you look in the mirror and wonder why you're Tim Allen, that's your fucking answer.
Yeah, so here comes one called Dog Knife Circus. Sports changed really quick. Yeah, no one liked balls anymore. Change it up, said everyone. So now all the athletes had knives. Footballers lost their feet because they kicked knives, and basketball players lost fingers because they dribbled knives, but hockey players were just fine, except for goalies. See ya! So anyway, the world ran out of athletes, and the biggest soda brand in the world, you bet, Croa. They were so scared because now all their stadiums were empty, and that was bad for branding. They had a big meeting where everyone got upset, and Deborah had to be restrained so she wouldn't scream. At you! Yeah, that's right. Right in the middle of this whole thing, you bet, is you! Oh, shit! Yeah, I bet you were wondering, what dummy decided to get rid of balls? That was you! Back in September. You remember September? You mounted a multi-level cultural attack aimed at the very idea of roundness. Why did you do it? Did you even know how many things are round? Well, you were too busy promoting Croa Square, the can that's harder to hold, to worry about widespread societal ramifications. Your marketing acumen backfired, because now an entire world was mad at you, and you bet that world was Planet Earth. Story bless ya. What to do? Well, you cleared your throat and said it real loud. I'll teach dogs knives. You opened a dog university in Arkansas. Ha 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 ha! And all the dogs went there. Ruff, said one dog. What's your major? Barkip grrr, said the other, which basically means major in knife throwing, but minor in political science. But I don't know, maybe I want to make a documentary, like, about the little stuff in life. No one ever does that. So all the dogs studied hard, and their families wrote them letters which no dog understood, but they ate the paper? Okay, pups. But then they graduated, and everyone saw what dogs could do now. Little chihuahuas juggled Bowie knives. Spaniels played tennis with tennis knives. A border collie whipped a butterfly knife so fast the doctor said, "Not in my house." And all the dachshunds dunked daggers dangerously. Everyone was impressed, and sure, the dogs were proud, but it wasn't enough just to know how to use knives. They wanted to compete and test their skills in a tournament of feats. So you decided, well, let's figure this out. Good on you, buddy. Jesus fucking Christ. So you listened to all the dogs, all of them, one by one, because they all looked up to you, and you nodded your head because you understood exactly. You stood and said, is anyone busy on Christmas? Yep, so that year on Christmas, everyone sent their dogs to the big annual sports off, because sports was now a dog and knife circus. And that's why on Christmas, we hunkered down in front of the television, brand new knives in our puppies' wet mouths, and watched professional canines fucking stab and grab for our delight. Yeah, I'm talking sports! Thank you, for doing this. And remember, every dog dies in your name.
Okay, here's another one. It's called Santa Fucking Loses It. A couple years ago, Santa fucking lost it. He'd been in a bad groove for a super long time, caught a few DUIs, got in a couple fights, and fired his longtime publicist, who once considered Santa more of a father than a boss. Then the shit really hit the Christmas fan, which is like a regular fan in a lot of ways, but different in a lot of ways too. Mrs. Claus met a guy at her work named Pietro, and he loved her like no man had loved her before. Pietro had the girth that makes the lady's birth, and within weeks of having real down and dirty hump sessions, Mrs. Claus was pregnant with a couple kids because Pietro was so fertile. One night when Santa was asleep having Christmas dreams, mostly nightmares about all the bad shit he'd done in the war, Mrs. Claus snuck into the kitchen, penned a note about her affair with Pietro in pornographic detail, and left, never to see Santa again. Santa awoke to the note the next morning. "Ah!" he shouted. He fell to the floor, screaming like a falcon hit by a Chevy, gripping the ground until his fingernails popped off, slamming his head against the linoleum floor insanely until something snapped. Well, two things snapped. One was his skull because he hit it too hard, and the other thing was his mind in the poetic sense. And when his mind broke, he couldn't help but laugh. Santa laughed and laughed in his signature ho ho ho. He laughed his way to the bathroom and looked at himself in the mirror. Shit, he'd really fucking let himself go. He had bags under his eyes, and his toenails could open a fucking can of Goya low-sodium black beans. His belly button hung below his Christmas testes, and he resolved then and there to get in shape and do something he always wanted to do, something really fucking cool that everyone would always remember. So he came up with a two-part plan. Part 1, the transformation. Santa began working out. He lifted weights that looked really super fucking heavy and ate boiled chicken every day, every meal, like a fucking monk. He opened an Instagram account and started to post pictures documenting his progress. The first month, the transformation was hardly noticeable, but within 3 months, he was posting pictures of him on the beach, hashtag workout goals, posing with hot babes and handsome hunks. The hunks were hung, and the babes were busty. His life looked like a fucking beer commercial. The final picture he ever posted to his account was him freshly shaved, with a square, handsome jawline. Santa was ready for part 2 of his plan. Part 2, the bank. Tick, 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 tick. Santa's watch turned to 3:17 p.m., the exact time the guards switched at First National Bank in some part of the Midwest. He got out of his car, tucked an automatic rifle into his Santa suit, slung a heavy duffel bag over his shoulder, and walked in through the automatic doors. He got in a fast-moving line and waited until it was his turn. "Sir, come to the fucking window already," the kind old bank teller called. Santa walked up with a devilish smirk, like he was about to do something fucking bonkers. "Sir, what the fuck do you want?" the nice old teller asked. Santa cleared his throat. "I'd like to deposit this cash." He dropped the duffel bag on the counter. The teller opened it and saw millions of dollars, cold hard cash, simoleons. "Whatever," the teller responded, and started stuffing it into a safe. "Oh, and one more thing," Santa said. He reached into his coat and pulled out his rifle and slammed it on the counter. "I'd like to deposit this fucking rifle, too." The teller didn't even blink. "Whatever you say," he responded. The teller took the gun and put it in the safe along with the cash. Santa felt relieved. He finally put away the gun he used to do some awful shit in the war that he had nightmares about. He set aside money in the bank so it could grow over the years with interest, hopefully generating a nice nest egg when he retired. He got the deposit slip from the teller and went into the parking lot. There was Santa, young, hung, and full of cum. He flexed. His muscles were fucking huge. He was in great shape. This was a brand new Santa. He stepped into the parking lot when a huge fucking truck burst off an embankment and onto the pavement in front of him. The old guy who was driving had a stroke on the highway. His foot went limp and he cranked on the gas, barreling right for the bank, right for Santa. Santa hardly had time to scream. The truck hit him straight on and pushed him forward, pinning him against the wall of the bank. Santa coughed up a thick part of one of his organs. He realized this is how he would die. The kindly old bank teller ran out of the bank to see what happened. The teller spat on the ground as he watched Santa die. Then he went to the truck and opened the door. The stroked out old man rolled down onto the pavement, eyes wide, mouth open. The teller grinned. There'd be no Christmas this year. And when he got home, he was gonna take a hot shit.
The story must be told.